Howdy, folks. I'm the Old Ranger with an exciting new story of real life in the Old West. Not all the excitement in the early West centered around cowboys and Indians or outlaws and peace officers. There were other conflicts, perhaps not so well known, but just as dramatic and just as important to the future of the country. Like the story you're about to hear of a woman who fought to avenge her husband and wound up winning a major battle everywhere for a woman's rights. It began in the frontier town of South Pass, territory of Wyoming, in the gun-toting year of 1869. Men gambled their lives on finding gold. Others, like storekeeper John Morris, gambled their life savings grub-staking men like
Steve Nelson. You're arraigned here on charges for defrauding John Morris, a storekeeper, of his legitimate half-interest in the Minnetonka mine. Well, now, that's a pretty serious accusation.
Your Honor, the defendant pleads not guilty and asks that the charges against him be dismissed for lack of evidence.
Your Honor.
Mr. Prosecutor?
There's plenty of evidence to support these charges. John Morris grub-staked Steve Nelson.
Oh, there was a written agreement?
No, sir, but I have witnesses who will testify.
Well, sure, I got my outfit at John Morris's store, but I paid for everything. Cash on the barrelhead.
Well, in the absence of a written agreement, it comes down to one man's opinion against another.
The claim that Nelson located was legally filed in both names.
There's no mention in the records of John Morris.
No, sir, because those papers were tampered with. The files in the recorder's office were rifled.
Your Honor, I have here a signed statement from the county recorder, who is regrettably confined to his bed with a bad case of laryngitis. In his opinion, it would be impossible to rifle the office files and change the existing records without being detected.
Your Honor, if you will order those files produced in court.
The court is willing to accept the opinion of the county recorder in this matter.
John Morris produced the capital for the necessary development work.
All it took was 2 arms and a strong back.
But there was machinery.
A drill, a couple of shovels.
Enough to use up John Morris's savings.
The contents of a piggy bank.
Your Honor, as representative of the people of this territory, I demand that Steve Nelson be brought to trial.
Now, look here, young fella. You're new around here. You'd know better than to try to intimidate the court. Now, any further such demands from you, and I'll hold you in contempt.
Your Honor, denial of justice in this case can well affect the whole future welfare of this territory.
And so can the dragging of useless litigation through the courts, wasting the taxpayers' money.
I agree. Case dismissed. Court will adjourn.
If you'd like to reconvene at the Buckhorn, the drinks are on me.
Sorry, John.
You did your best.
It's outrageous a man like that should hold the office of judge.
Well, McGreevy's got him right where he wants him.
There must be something we can do.
There is. Pull up stakes and get out of here.
John?
Yeah?
Did you mean what you just said?
About leaving Wyoming? Yes.
Where would we go?
Back where we came from. Back to New England, where a man can lead a respectable life.
I hate to think of leaving here. I've grown to love this country. I think of it as home.
Esther, what's the good of scenery if a man can't make an honest living for himself and his family? What's all the ruckus?
Lucretia Mott and her suffragettes.
What'll that silly woman think of next?
I don't think she's so silly. She's fighting for what she believes in, women's rights.
She ought to be trying to get some decent law and order in this town.
Maybe this is her way of getting it. Hello, Esther. Evening, John. Hello, Lucretia.
Come along, Esther. We have work to do before we leave here. "14 glass chimneys and 5 lamps. "7 bolts of calico and 3 of gingham.
If you try and unload all of this, you're going to lose money.
Lost so much already, it doesn't much matter.
Hello, Lucretia.
Good evening, Esther. Can I come in?
Well, of course.
Now, you folks go right on with your work. I just want to have a few words with John. I heard about what happened in court today. What are you planning to do about it?
Esther and I are leaving here for good.
Running away?
You can call it that.
Well, why don't you stay and fight?
Lucretia, I've been fighting ever since I came here 2 years ago. And the result? I've got less than when I started. 7 whisk rooms.
If you want to clean this town up, there's just one way to do it. Help women get the votes.
Lucretia, you know my feelings on that subject. Politics are a man's domain.
Parrot talk.
A woman's place is in the home.
Well, then what is Esther doing here?
Well, this is a family enterprise.
Oh, now look, John.
And we'd like to get this inventory finished tonight.
Poor John, he's suffering from an old disease, maleness.
All right, all right.
Now, in my opinion, John, you'd show much more maleness if, instead of repeating those old, worn-out sentiments, you'd stand up for what you honestly and truly believe in your heart is right. And you know you do, John.
Yeah, there's a soapbox over there, Lucretia.
We'll put you on it when you go to battle for us.
6 mugs.
We think that the Wyoming legislature would pass a suffrage bill if we just had the right man to present one. And now we do have.
4 vases and 4 pitchers.
It's you.
What are you talking about?
Why, you're just the ideal man to lead a crusade like that. A man folks respect as well as like.
How many pitchers did I say?
I'm sorry, John. I was listening to Lucretia.
He said 4 vases. Well, how about it, John? Are you willing to stand for office?
I'm sorry, Lucretia. We're pulling out.
Esther, you know how much this could mean, not only for Wyoming, but for the whole country. Now tell John he's got to do it. It's his moral duty.
Well, Lucretia, I think this is something my husband should decide for himself.
Well, I hope you change your mind, John. Good night.
Good night, Lucretia.
There's a piece of paper around this rock. It's a note. This is a warning, Morris. Get out of town and stay out, or we'll make it hot for you.
Let me see that.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to find out who's responsible for this.
You cannot fight McGreevy and his gang alone.
Well, one thing's certain, I'm not leaving.
Good. Then maybe you will be our candidate. It's the only way to deal with these people.
I'd like to see you do it.
All right, I will. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a politician. I'm just a plain citizen interested in clean government. Hey! And if I'm elected, I promise to do everything in my power to drive the crooks and highbinders out of this territory.
Hey, Morris! When did you join the suffragettes?
When I made up my mind, it was the only way to fight men like you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the only ammunition our opponents have to offer.
Much obliged, man.
Have another one. It's on me.
Well, maybe just one more.
Who are you voting for, Jim?
Ain't quite made up my mind, Ben.
Just make sure you don't vote more than once.
See you, Ben.
How McGreevy has the nerve to...
Well, how's the temperance candidate? Giving out white ribbons for votes? How can you stand it, Mrs. Morris, being married to such a holy man?
Get moving, Nelson.
Lips that touch liquor will never touch mine.
I said get moving.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Billings. I sure didn't mean to get in the way of a vote for Honest John. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Billings. Gosh, I don't know how that happened. Here, let me get your hat. Here's your hat, Mr. Billings. Mr. Billings, you shouldn't lose your temper, not on election day. Here. This is cool you off. Have a sip. Or take it all. All right.
I'll see who it is.
We won, Lucretia. John won the election.
Wonderful. That should be just the medicine for John.
Right.
He won, Esther. He won.
He's gone, Lucretia. John's dead.
John Morris. Come on out, John. Come on out. Come on, John.
We understand how you feel, Esther, but we wish you'd think it over about leaving. For a while, at least.
I have thought it over.
But you belong here, Esther. This has become home to you. You've said so many times.
It's not home anymore.
We've persuaded Governor Lee to introduce a suffrage bill in the legislature. If it passes, things could be very different in this territory.
It'll never pass.
It might, if we had someone there to fight for it. Don't you want to finish what you and John set out to do?
John was right to begin with. You can't fight men like McGreevy with speeches about equal rights, and if I'd listened to him, he might be alive today. And all I want to do is get away from here and forget. I can.
What about Steve Nelson's trial? Certainly you'll stay for that.
You bet I will. And for the hanging I expect to follow it. This is one case Judge Wheeler won't dismiss for lack of evidence.
And now, Mrs. Morris, would you be so kind as to tell the court in your own words exactly what happened at that point?
At that point, he drew a gun and shot my husband in the back. It was cold-blooded murder.
Objection. Conclusion of the witness.
Sustained?
Your witness, Mr. McGreevy?
No questions.
That'll be all, Mrs. Morris.
I don't understand this. They're not fighting.
Your Honor, in light of the evidence presented in this preliminary hearing, the prosecution requests that the defendant in this case be brought to trial for first-degree murder.
If the court please, we'd like to call the defendant to the stand.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, Mr. Nelson, let's see if we can't save the taxpayers some money and the court a little time. Now, you've heard the evidence the prosecution offered. Half a dozen people testified that you shot and killed John Morris here in South Pass on Election Day. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Then you plead guilty to a murder charge.
Oh, no, sir. That shooting was in the line of duty.
Duty?
Well, I was officially assigned to guard the polling place during the election. Morris was interfering with me in the performance of my duty.
I object, Your Honor. There's no evidence that this man was working as a guardian of the law.
Your Honor, may I remind you that as Registrar of Voters, you yourself appointed Steve Nelson a poll watcher on the day of election?
So I did. Yet it slipped my mind for the moment.
Your Honor, we concede that the defendant in this case was a little overzealous in discharging his responsibility. But we submit that under the circumstances, a charge of murder is wholly unwarranted. We ask the court to release the defendant and render a verdict of justifiable homicide.
Your Honor, I object. This is not a defense. It's a cheap legal trick. I demand that Nelson stand trial for murder.
Order. Order in the court. The court will stand in recess while I consider this question.
How long a recess?
Until I come to a decision.
That could take forever.
Then who is the judge here, you or me? Court is in recess until further notice.
I didn't think they'd dare.
I didn't either. A lot of things I've been wrong about. Come on.
Where are we going?
See the governor.
The governor?
John couldn't run away. I can't either.
Then you're back in the fight?
I certainly am, and this time I'm staying in it till we win.
Wait for me!
As you all know, endorsement of the suffrage bill by this committee would virtually ensure its passage by the legislature. And so I ask you, in the interests of justice and good government, to grant that endorsement.
Women are too flighty, scatterbrained. You couldn't trust them with a vote.
What's the meaning of this?
Are you Governor Lee?
I am.
I'm Esther Morris of South Pass. I'm sorry to break in like this, but I heard that you were debating the suffrage bill, and I had something I wanted to say before you made your final decision.
So you're Esther Morris. I knew your husband, a fine man. Gentlemen, I think this lady should be heard. Mrs. Morris?
This is not the time or place for demonstrations.
I'm not here to demonstrate, sir. I'm here to try and do something about the lawlessness and the corruption that infest this territory, and I know of only one sure way to do that. Give women the legal right to a say in things.
You really think passing this bill would put an end to all our troubles?
Only the good Lord can do that, sir. But at least this bill will enlist all women on the side of law and order.
All women? What makes you so sure of that?
They have to vote that way. They have no choice. Men can sometimes solve their problems with their fists or with a gun. But women have to find peaceful means because they're weak and often helpless. I don't say that women won't make mistakes, but in the long run, they will bring to politics in this territory the point of view of those interested in building up, not tearing down, of preserving, not destroying, Gentlemen, give women a chance to fight for what they believe in. Give them a chance to defend their homes with the only weapon they can wield effectively. Give them the vote. Thank you for listening.
I'm proud of you, honey.
Mrs. Morris, you're a very effective speaker. I have a feeling this committee will endorse the suffrage bill.
Oh, I hope so.
You should be in politics yourself.
Never. There is one thing you could do for me, though, Governor Lee. Something important to the people of South Pass.
If it's within my power, why don't you wait for me in my office? I should be through here presently.
I'll be there.
Court will come to order. The court is now ready to make a ruling in respect to the case of Territory versus Steve Nelson. And the court finds that the defendant was actually serving as an officer of the law at the time of the alleged murder. And therefore, what is the meaning of this intrusion? Court is in session.
I don't know what you are about to rule on, Judge Wheeler, but in any case, it wouldn't be legal. Here is an order from Governor Lee removing you as judge and appointing me to serve in your place. If you don't mind, I'll take over right now.
Well, I had it coming to me. I've been a disgrace to my profession.
The gavel, please.
Once a man starts slipping, well, I'm glad to be replaced.
Steve Nelson, step up, please.
Your Honor, I protest. This court is prejudiced against Steve Nelson.
You're right, Mr. McGreevy. I am prejudiced. So much so that I have arranged to have Steve Nelson's case transferred to Judge Simpson's court in Laramie. You'll find Judge Simpson's only prejudice is against injustice.
Your Honor, the Nelson case can be taken off the calendar.
Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Nelson asked for what he got. But I want you all to know that I didn't ask for this job. Governor Lee persuaded me to take it. However, now that I have got it, I intend to take it seriously. Now, that means that from now on, this court will be a court of law, and anyone who tries to influence it will find himself in serious trouble. Do I make myself clear, Mr. McGreevy? Next case, Mr. Billings.
Yes, sir. Widowed and riding side saddle. Esther Morris of South Pass practically stampeded the Wyoming legislature into granting women the right to vote, and was appointed the first female judge in the United States. And all this happened in 1869, more than 50 years before the Union got around to granting woman suffrage.